You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am. I am Mad Coach. I am Mad Coach. I am. You are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. Mad World. Let's take a look at this fight between Preston Hocker and Mike Pagano. I want to use this fight to give a definition for fight IQ. Over the years, what I've noticed is in the gym, preparation is crucial. It's part of your fight IQ. Your ability to prepare for your opponent is based on available information. If you have a lot of information, the more specific you can be about the opponent. Without that information, you're going to have to be a bit more well-rounded and sharpen up the tools in the toolbox. The second level is adaptation. Do you have the ability to recognize something that's going wrong in the fight and make changes accordingly? Then the third level is to understand what your base game is. Your base game is not whether you wrestle or box, kickbox, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, judo. Has nothing to do with your martial art game, because your martial art game is simply an amplification of your base game. If you're more offensive natured, defensive natured, or counter-offensive, if you like to stay in the box and wait on counters, then maybe Muay Thai is an art that's good for you. If you like to be a bit more aggressive, get the fight to the ground, then maybe wrestling is the game for you. Okay? If you like to get to the ground, but you want your opponent to engage you so that you can counter, maybe judo is a game for you, or jiu-jitsu. Depending on if you want to use that counter to throw him, or use that counter to set him up for submission. But your base game is almost based on how you respond to a threat, almost always. So in this fight, I want to take a look at some different scenes here that show you at different times where we're going to identify the base game for Pagano and Hocker, and then show you who made the best decisions, who made the best choices in terms of what their base games were. Let's start with Hocker. It is apparent to me that he likes to move forward. He likes to get into position to strike. And he has the skill, the strength, the attributes to support that type of game. That's a good assumption that his base game can come from striking contact, striking distance. Now, here you're going to see him even be able to counter Pagano's push kick while executing his own kick. Shows me, again, he's well suited for that skill set, but he makes one mistake. He hangs onto it to take him down. And Pagano's world is all about the grappling, the wrestling, and the jiu-jitsu in particular. Now, Hocker demonstrates the strong ability to return to his feet. If you're going to be a striker in MMA, you have to have the ability to return to your feet. And he does a good job on several occasions in this very short fight. But the problem is not getting back to his feet, and it's not his striking. We'll talk about it shortly. Here again, he does a good job getting the underhook, coming back to his feet. And he just spends too much time engaged with Pagano. Okay, so let's take a look at Pagano's skill set. What you notice right off the bat is he is comfortable being more of a counter fighter. This doesn't matter where he stands. It doesn't matter in the stand-up, or it doesn't matter on the ground or in the clinch. He's definitely more of a counter fighter. And here he makes a little bit of a adaptation when he goes down, and he immediately goes to the clinch and the takedown. Here's something to remember that's always important. When your opponent is on top or standing above you, attempting to strike, Go into grappling mode. It is very instinctive for another person to try to grapple back. Go into grappling mode. In this situation right here, Hocker does a good job of getting the underhook, trying to trap Pagano between the cage and himself, but Pagano does a good job of creating angles and escaping. I want you to look at that again. That is a good example of adaptation in real time. Hocker goes for the underhook. Pagano goes for a head and arm control. Now watch Hocker try to move Pagano to the cage to trap him. Pagano's aware. He backsteps to create space on that side and then cuts the angle because Hocker's hips are committed to one direction. That was beautiful fight IQ. And then he does a good job of pushing him up against the cage. So Hocker just spends too much time here, and he doesn't have the real skill set to go along with getting off the cage here. He doesn't win the head position. He doesn't move his hips and feet in the correct manner. And there are just some small things that he could do. There was a fight in the UFC back in September, a women's fight. Look, Bume and Frey. And look at this beautiful takedown. Awesome. And that's the fight I want you guys to study, to look at. Here he goes for a throw, which he should have just been concerned with escaping. But I want you to look at Look Bume and Frey. I'm going to give you some short clips, a short masterclass on some things that happened in that fight that you can learn from immediately. If you're going to be a striker taking on a grappler, number one, your back is against the cage. Use head position. Number two, turn your hips, not your feet. Turn your hips first. Create frames. These frames are going to help you get out of position and to strike. And once you strike, get your feet or your elbows back in place. Reset, reset, reset. Don't spend a lot of time in loose positions. Create more angles to escape. You got to do it again. It's a game. Create more openings to strike. It's always a game. You keep playing the game. Strike to the openings and strike hard. Make sure you create good openings. Move away from the cage when you can. Okay, and then more importantly, turn your opponent, put their back against the cage, and then do damage while you're there, and then back out. Okay, so this is round two. We're just gonna watch it in full, and again, you see he, is able to get Pagano down, but he goes down with him, and then he spends the rest of his time having to defend against the grappling, and I say defend because you see he's not setting up any submission attacks. You can use those attacks to get back to your feet, use your attacks to improve your position. And basically, you're going to see him trying to get back to his feet, but then you're going to see him just settle. He's going to settle for the guard. And he's starting to cooperate with Pagano's game. In the striking mode, Hocker should have used more footwork, feints, in and out positioning where he didn't make contact with Pagano. And then he probably could have picked him apart. But you don't know who these guys were at the time when they met. This fight's from several years ago. Hocker might have perceived himself to be the better grappler, the better contact guy. One of the things I noticed here is that Hocker's trying to use the elbow, and Pagano is really adamant about using the elbow. And one thing I noticed when it comes to Virginia, this is an amateur fight, but in Virginia they allow you to use elbows at the amateur and the pro level. What I've noticed is that a lot of the amateurs don't use the elbow. And I think that has a lot to do with training in the gym and the elbow just being this dangerous thing. Whereas guys who come from out of state, they take full advantage of the elbow. They don't mind throwing the elbow because we don't have it. So we take full advantage of it. And it's just something I've noticed a lot with Virginia fighters and other states that have the elbow. The fighters indigenous there don't use it. Here he goes for the wrist ride, and then at this point it's pretty much academic because Hocker's pretty much cooperated. I don't think he's tired. I don't think he's out. I think he's just frustrated. And then the referee's going to step in, and pretty much that's it. And Pagano gets the win. And keep in mind that these guys are good friends to this day. I just chose this fight to honor Mike Pagano, for winning his first amateur championship some 10 years ago.